Hi! Recently I posted a video about these. These are replacement speaker cones for the NuTone IS68 entry door stations that are used exclusively with the NuTone IK15 and IK25 intercom systems. And in this video I'm going to show you how we're going to put these to the very best use possible. So we have just under 100 of these right now, and I want to be able to offer them to people who need them to get their IS68s repaired so their IK entry intercom systems will work again. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the IS68, and then I'll explain to you what we're going to do. An IS68 is actually a fairly simple little door station. It's a brown plastic box. It's got a clear panel here where you could put your name in or your street address if you wanted to. It's got a doorbell push button here, and on the back of the unit you've got the speaker cone, the back of the push button, a couple capacitors, and some wires that connect everything together. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this apart, and I'm going to show you how we're going to duplicate the working parts of what's on the back of the IS68 grill using our new door speakers that we recently obtained. This particular IS68, this is just one I had in one of the boxes at the shop where we store lots of old and used things, and you can see it's a little grungy and kind of dirty, and I have no idea where it came from or how long it's been in the box, but this is a good example to do for a video like this because odds are this is pretty much what most people's IS68s are going to look like, and I'm going to show you how to make it look better and how to make it work like when it was brand new. So we're looking at the back of our IS68, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to unlatch the button here. The button is a two-piece assembly, and it's sort of a twist lock design, and so we're going to turn it and unlock it by twisting it, and we're going to untwist it counterclockwise. These get kind of corroded and rusty over time, and sometimes they're hard to untwist. And that one actually came apart pretty well, although part of it actually, the plastic actually broke. It doesn't matter because we're going to replace it with a new button when we rebuild the assembly, so it doesn't really matter. Everything we're taking off the back of the grill we're actually not going to keep or reuse, with the exception of the four little screws that hold the speaker to the back of the grill. We need to reuse those because they are the right size and they fit into the plastic standoffs that are on the back of the grill, and we don't want to put larger screws because that will stress the standoff and it could crack the plastic, and we don't want to do anything that's going to damage this. These plastic boxes are actually very sturdy. They're very thick, and their basic design gives them a lot of rigidity, and I'm actually squeezing it kind of hard and it's hardly bending at all. So these are really well made. So here's our assembly that I took out. This is an example of what we're going to rebuild. For the most part, once we're done, this goes in the trash because this one's no good anymore. So we'll just put that over there. The other thing we have to do is we have to take the front half of the button out of the grill. These are also sometimes hard to get out. Usually you can just push them out from the back with your thumb, but if it's really stuck, what you can do is take the handle of a screwdriver and you sort of take it and you'll carefully pound on it and it'll push it out through the front, and then you can pull it out, and that's going to get tossed away also. The last thing we're going to do, because we're going to clean this up some before we put our new parts in it, is we're going to remove this clear plastic part here, and you just need a little screwdriver and you pull it up on the one end where the tab is, and it'll come out. And it just lifts out. This we're going to keep, so this goes in our tin cup with our screws, and likewise we're going to keep the little piece of white paper. This one's never been written on. It is kind of discolored, so if you want to make a new one of these, you can just get a piece of heavier paper and cut it out and put your name or put a label on it and put your name or address or something like that on there. So we'll save that also. So now we're down to our bare plastic grill with nothing attached to it. Oh, we have a sticker. What does it say? It says made in Taiwan, because all the best stuff was made in Taiwan, before it all was made in other places. Let's take a quick look at this and see what we can do to improve it. If you want some indication of how the color of the brown plastic has changed over the years, you can look at the little panel area right here that had the clear plastic cover and the nameplate over it, because this has been covered up since this was installed when it was brand new, and you can tell that one, it's a little browner here, it's a little darker and deeper looking brown than compared to the parts that have been exposed to the weather and the sunlight. But also, generally speaking, this is all rather dirty, especially here around the button. If we go like this, there's just dirt on the plastic, there's dirt in the louvered areas, there's dirt in the screw holes here, which you can see if we take the little screwdriver and we go like this. You can scrape away the dirt and see the brown plastic underneath. And of course there's paint and junk on the edges where it sat against the wall, and you got paint spatters on the bottom, because that's what happens when you paint your house and you try to paint around it. So what are we going to do with this? Well, and it's all dirty on the inside too. It's just, you know, it's got dirt everywhere because it's been outside. All I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take it out to the wash sink in the shop here, and I'm going to use some cleaner on it, and I'm going to see if I can clean it up and get some of the paint off of it and make it look closer to like what it looked like when it was brand new. What kind of cleaner are we going to use? Well, I'm going to start with this. This is one of those, or it's called All-in-One Orange Oxy Multi-Surface Cleaner and Carpet Spot Remover Spray and Wipe. And this is one of those modern citrus-based cleaners. It's a water-based cleaner, and this is what we use to clean faceplates when we rebuild people's intercom systems, and it does a good job. It won't damage the plastic. It says fortified with hydrogen peroxide, so that must be a good thing, otherwise they wouldn't put it on the label, would they? What you don't want to do is, you don't want to use anything on this that's harsher or doesn't have a water base. You don't want to use lacquer thinner, you don't want to use acetone, you don't want to use goof off or any of those kind of things, because you risk damaging the plastic and perhaps melting it, and then it'll be ruined. These are very, very hard to come by. There's a fella on eBay right now, he has one of these, it's new old stock in the box, he says never been installed, and he wants $225 for it. And that's a lot of money just because you sprayed the wrong kind of cleaner on the plastic housing. So let's not do that. Let's use something that's milder, and for the most part, most paint on the outside, it's going to be a water-based paint, and this actually does a good job of softening it up. And then you can use a bristle brush on it or a brass brush. A brass brush won't damage or scratch up the plastic. The nice thing about this is a lot of this surface, especially where the paint is stuck on it, it has sort of a pebble texture finish. So while it makes it a little harder to get the paint off of it, it doesn't show any of the marks that might happen when you're cleaning the paint off of it. So let's go ahead and see if we can, I'm going to go ahead and get this soaking in the cleaner, and then I'll be back and show you what it looks like. So I'm back. So here's our newly cleaned IS68 plastic grill, and as you can see, the paint's gone that was across the top edge where it sits against the wall, and the paint spatters are gone off the sides, and it actually looks pretty good. The inside's all clean. We aren't going to see the inside, but if you're going to work on something, nobody really wants to work on something that's all dirty and grungy inside, so washing it all up makes it good. I can tell you that, and it may be a little hard to see in the video, the very front part of it, the louvered grill area, it is somewhat discolored and faded compared to the sides and so forth because it's been exposed to the sunlight, but it looks very presentable, and it certainly is better than what it was before we started. One of the things you can do if you really want to, if you want to be hardcore about this and you really want it to look the best as possible, because after all, this is on the front of your house, it's the first thing people see when they walk up, and you know, you don't want it to look all nasty and everything, is you can always paint this. It's not a bad item to do that with because it's all one color. It's not a terribly complicated shape to paint. The toughest part are the louvered areas here, because trying to get enough paint on it to get down inside the louvers is nearly impossible with regular spray paint. So you have to be careful in how you do this. And basically the rule on anything time you spray paint anything is you want to do a lot of light coats. If you haven't sprayed paint things a lot, you may want to get something to sort of practice on to get a feel for how it's going to go, because what you don't want to do is end up with this being all gloppy and uglier and worse looking than it already is, because you have to realize once you paint it, you're all in. There's no going backwards to what it is, so you have to make an honest assessment whether it's really okay as it is or you think you need to do more. The color is not a hard one to match. It's basically what I like to refer to as Crayola brown. It's just your most basic of brown colors, like a kid's crayon. So that's not hard. And yes, I have painted them before, and what I like to use is this. This is Rust-Oleum. It's a satin finish. It's a very similar brown color, which is fine, and it works pretty well. These are good. These have a little better than average spray nozzles on them, so you get a little better spray out of it than a more traditional spray nozzle on a spray can. The real trick to this is, it says on the can that it's got to dry for 24 hours. And they really mean 24 hours. If you think that after 2.5 hours you can pick it up and start working on it, you'd be wrong, because it's still going to be kind of tacky underneath and you'll mess up the finish. So if you do decide you're going to paint yours, you have to realize that once you paint it, then you're going to have to let it sit overnight at least, or until the next day, to make sure it's actually dry, because you don't want to get a big old thumbprint in the middle of the new paint and then it looks worse than when you started. So, you know, it's your call whether you want to try that or not. Sometimes just cleaning it up is the best way to go. So let's go ahead and look at what it's going to take to build new guts and put this back into working order. Our task at this point is to duplicate this, the working parts out of the back of the IS69 speaker grill. And since ultimately we're going to have to make at least 100 of these, and if these are popular enough, then what we may have done is we'll have our speaker cone manufacturer, who has made other entry door speaker cones for us, duplicate these speaker cones, and that would be an advantage in that we could have them made with mylar cones instead of paper cones, which will make them last longer. But these have to be popular enough to justify the effort and the expense in doing something like that. So we're going to figure that out while we go through the first 100 of these. But today's job is to build a replacement for this. And to make that easier, what I've done is I've made this. This is going to be our assembly jig for our IS69 working components that we're going to put back in the grill that we just washed. We have to build about 100 of these, and I want them to all be identical. I want them to be all exactly the same. When you construct something out of different parts that you're going to be offering or selling to people, one of the key things you have to do is you have to do it in a way that's repeatable and is efficient. If you are trying to make an assembly out of a speaker cone, a doorbell button, some capacitors, and some wire, and it's all floating around loose on the bench when you're trying to put it together, odds are they're not going to be very uniform by the time you're done with it. And also, it's going to take longer in fighting with everything as it gets pushed around on the bench when you're trying to assemble it, and that's not very efficient, and it makes it take longer, which is not a good idea. So what I did was I built this jig, and let me show you how I'm going to use it. Our jig is a representation of the grill that everything's going to mount on, and it would be the grill upside down because we're assembling everything to sit in the back of the grill, so we have to build it from the back side. So what do we have here? Well, we have 4 little plastic posts that I put in the piece of wood here, and these posts are spaced and sized perfectly so our new speaker cone will sit down over them and it will be held in place. To give it a little more security there, I made this little flexible piece of wood here that can be swiveled over, and it puts a little tension on the back of the magnet to make sure that it sits flat on the wood and it doesn't fall out when I'm working on it. Just to make sure, because it was one more piece and another screw, so it's not that big of a deal. The other thing we have to do is we have to put a new push button, which we're going to do, and this is a real genuine NuTone push button, and this is going to go through the hole here, which is the representation of the hole on the front of the grill. So if we flip this over, because you have to put it in from the front, we're going to put it into the hole here. Now, on the button, embossed into the plastic part that you push with your finger right here, it actually says NuTone. So, you know, we don't want the NuTone name to be upside down. That would be kind of bad. We want to be proud of the fact that we have a proper NuTone button. So we'll make sure it's right side up when we put it in the hole. And now when we flip it over, we have access to the screws on the back, and the spacing and the distance from the speaker cone is the same as it is on the back of the grill. How about that? Now the other thing we have to do is we have to make up some wires to connect everything together, and our capacitors. So what do we have for wires? Well, the way these were done originally, you have one long wire here, which goes from one speaker terminal to one side of the button, and then there's a little short brown wire here. This gets connected to one of the two wires that comes out through the hole in your exterior wall of your house. And then on this side, on the other speaker terminal, we have our two capacitors, very important. They have to be there, otherwise it won't work properly. And they go to the other side of the button here. And then again, there's another little short brown wire, which gets connected to the second wire that comes out of the hole in the wall on the outside of your house. So we have to duplicate this. Now, this is long. It's longer than you think it would need to be. And if we put this here and we hold the button way down here, you can see it's well below. It's about 2.5 inches below where our button is, but we want some slack in it. So when you put it together, it's not all stretched really tight, and it makes it easier to assemble it and all like that. And the rule here is that knowing that NuTone would easily have made the wires shorter if they thought they could have gotten away with it and have saved an inch or two of wire on every one. And you have to imagine that if you save 2 inches of wire on every IS68 you make, and possibly they made 3 or 4 million IS68s, that's a lot of wire. So they're this length for a reason, and they know better than I do, I would guess. So we're just going to make it exactly the same. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut our wire. Now what you can envision is when we start making these in a bigger quantity than just one, we're going to sit down and we're going to cut a bunch of lengths of wire all at one time. We might cut 50 of each length that we need and get them all prepared. So when it's time to build them, we can just reach in the container that they're in and take out what we need and we're all ready to go. But for this example, this is the truly first hand-built one that we're building. So we're going to do each step one step at a time to make sure we've got it worked out properly. What I did here was on our jig, I made some marks on it, and I've already predetermined what length of wire I need. So I need one piece of wire that's about 3.5 inches long, and that's from the end of the block to the mark here. I need another piece of wire that's about 9 inches long, which is the entire length of the jig assembly. And when it comes time to make up our capacitors, they need to be from the end of the block here to this mark here. And having it all on the jig makes it easier because you don't have to remember. It's a template, and a template is always a good way to go. And since the template's all on the jig and we're not going to lose the jig, we'll always have the measurements. So that just makes my life simpler. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our wire and we're going to line it up, and we're going to snip off a piece that's 3.5 inches long. And now we're going to take a piece and we're going to snip it that's about 9.5 inches long. We're going to take our two capacitors, and I've done a video showing about how the capacitors get assembled, and we're going to assemble them as they are on the original ones. We're just going to pair them up side by side, and one end, the wire leads just get twisted together like that. And for now we're going to leave them long, and I'll show you why we're going to do it that way as we go along. Once we've done that, we can straighten them out some to give them some length, and we can place them on our jig, and we can see that they're all just about all together just as they come. They're about the right length. They're a little bit longer than we need, but that's okay because we can always trim them off when we install them. So now we have the basic parts of what we need. We have our capacitors and we have our two lengths of wire. Now we need to prepare these so we can actually build this here. Alright, so to prepare our wires on our 3.5 inch piece of wire, what we need to do is we just need to strip the insulation off the ends of it because we have to get it ready to connect them to the speaker and the push button. And I'm going to use our wire strippers here. These are extra nice fancy wire strippers. They won't nick the wires inside the insulation. They'll just strip the insulation off. Now the wire we're using is just like the original wire. It is 22 gauge stranded wire, which is the same size wire that's in the original one. And you want to use stranded wire for something like this because solid wire might have a tendency to break if you move it around more, and stranded wire won't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to strip off about a little less than 1/2 inch off that end and 1/2 inch off the other end. It's probably closer to 3/8, but somewhere in that it's close enough. And then what you want to do is you want to twist the wire around. So you twist the bare strands on the end together so they don't flay out and make a big mess. And then we're going to take our 9.5 inch piece of wire, and to start with we're only going to strip off the insulation on one end, and again it's about 1/2 inch. And you can see how when you strip it the strands get all bent around, and that's why you want to hold the strands in your finger and you twist the other part with the insulation on it still, and that'll tighten up the bundle so you have a nice clean end. So now it's time to actually start assembling our replacement speaker harness assembly. Okay, so let's start assembling our replacement speaker assembly. So we're going to take our piece of 9.5 inch wire, and I'm going to connect it to the left hand terminal on the speaker cone, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip it underneath and put it through the hole and then bend it over like this. And now this needs to be soldered in place. And when you solder something like this on a speaker terminal, what you want to do is fill up the entire hole and the surface of the contact so the wire is held really securely in place. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect this to the left hand screw terminal on the push button. So I'm going to hold the button and I'm going to loosen the screw a couple turns. These are very small brass screws, so you need to be careful and not strip them out. So you need a medium-sized Phillips screwdriver or a medium-sized flat screwdriver to loosen the screw. Now what we're going to do is, on the original assemblies, you had the black wire down to the left-hand screw terminal, and there's a little eyelet connector on it, and then that brown wire is in the eyelet connector also, and it's all crimped closed and it's put under the button. We're not going to do it that way because I've looked and looked and looked, and I can't find eyelet connectors anywhere that are this small. And I'll take this apart and show you. These are little tiny ones, way smaller, and I've looked everywhere. I've looked online, I've looked at local suppliers. I can't find anything really this small, and also I think the crimping would be more difficult than is necessary. So I'm going to show you how we've done this in the past, which seems to work pretty well. We need to allow some slack. We're not going to take this and put it tight like this. We want some slack in this because you have to be able to have enough slack to assemble everything easily, and this is our slack. So we're going to cut the insulation about 3.5 inches, surprisingly enough, down from the speaker terminal. And how we're going to do that is we're going to use our wire strippers, because they won't cut the insulation. They won't cut the wire. They'll just cut the insulation. And I need to do it this way. And when it cuts the insulation, it pushes it apart. So now what we have is we have an area of the wire where the insulation has been cut and it's been pushed down towards the free end, and here we have some bare wire right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to twist it just a little to wrap it tightly together, and then we're going to put it underneath the screw head here and just loop it through like that. And that way we make the connection, and we still have our pigtail lead here, which is going to get connected to one of the two wires that comes out of the hole in the wall on the outside of your house. Now, since the insulation was pushed down here about 1/2 inch, we need to snip off that much. And then we need to strip off the end of this wire so we have a bare wire to make the connection with. And we're going to be a little more generous on this, and we're going to go about 3/4 of an inch of stripped wire, because that will make it easier for the customer to assemble it. And again, we're going to twist the strands together so they're nice and tight. And then we're almost done with this piece, but we're going to come back to it in a second. Now it's time to assemble the other side of our connections, and this is where we use our two capacitors that we twisted together earlier. And what we're going to do is we're going to put one end of the capacitor lead on the right hand terminal of the speaker, and the other one will go on the right hand screw of the push button. Now again, we don't want to make these super tight like this. We want some slack in here, so we're going to leave these long like they are now, because that's how they were done originally. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end of the capacitor lead down here, that's going to go under the speaker terminal, and I'm going to bend it up to make a hook, and I'm going to hook it through and then bend it over like this. Whenever you solder anything like a wire onto a terminal or the lead of a component onto a terminal, you want a good physical connection on here before you do the soldering. Solder, the rule is, solder is not a structural element. If you just laid the lead on the surface of the speaker contact, so it was just sitting flat on it, it wasn't through the hole and it wasn't bent over, then what can happen is over time you can get a fracture in the solder joint and the lead can come off. So you need to bend it through the hole so it has a physical connection and then solder it, and then it won't ever be a problem. So that takes care of this end. So let's go ahead and loosen the right hand screw of our push button. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our 3.5 inch piece of wire, and we're going to make a hook in the end of it. We're going to bend over the bare end that we stripped the insulation off of, and we're going to place it under the screw, making sure that the hook goes in the direction you want the hook going clockwise, because when you turn the screw to tighten it, you're turning it clockwise, and you don't want it to push the wire out from under the head of the screw. You want it to turn the hook in the same direction as the screw is turning, and that will help hold it underneath the screw, and it will make a better connection. So we put that wire first, and now what we're going to do is we're going to put the other end of the lead for the second capacitor on top of that. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make a hook in the capacitor lead, and we're going to place it under the screw head and close it up just a little bit with the screwdriver so it fits nicely, and then we're going to tighten the screw. And then you have to look at it to make sure that everything is under the screw head, because this is making the connection on the one side of the push button, so it needs to be done properly. The reason you put the stranded wire first and then the component lead on top of it is because since the component lead is a solid piece of wire, and it's sitting on top of the stranded hook, and when you tighten it down, the screw head pushes it all down together. It's kind of working as like a washer. It's pushing down on the stranded wire to help hold it in place so it all stays secure, and it just seems to be a better way to go. Now, this looks like there's a lot of slack here, but this is how it was done originally, so that's how we're going to do it today. You might think we're almost done, and we are, but we have a couple things to do. One of the things I like to do on something like this is we want to do something with the bare ends of the black wires that are going to get connected to the two wires that come out of the hole in the wall on the outside of your house. And right now they're just stripped back and twisted, and what we want to do is we want to tin those a little bit with a little bit of solder, so when you go to hook it up to the wires coming out of the hole in the wall on the outside of your house, they don't get all frayed out and it makes a big mess and you don't get a good connection. And it's easy enough to do. We just take our soldering iron and we just heat it up a little bit and drag a little solder along the length of the wire, and all that does is it solders the ends of the wires together so they won't splay out when you fiddle around with them, and you'll have a good connection. The other thing we need to do is we have to solder together the two capacitors where we twisted the leads together, and that's pretty much the same thing. We just heat it up for a second. We'll put a little bit of solder on the end there. There's no reason to solder the whole thing, because now what we're going to do is we're going to clip off most of it. We leave about 3/8 of an inch twisted together and it's soldered, and that's all you got to do. And that completes the assembly of our replacement IS68 working components for our IS68 entry door station. So let's go ahead and take this off of here and put it back in our faceplate. To take this apart, what we have to do is we have to twist our doorbell button, the back side of it, like we did when we took apart the IS68. And sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's not. And it comes apart like this, and then we can move our piece of springy wood, and this just lifts off. One of the other things we have to do on this is all of these push buttons, at least the ones we have right now, they all have little lights in them. They're lit doorbell buttons. IS68s did not have lit doorbell buttons, and IK15 and IK25 entry intercom systems, they don't have lit buttons. In fact, they're designed specifically not to have lit buttons, and no, you can't have one. So we're just going to reach in there and carefully pull the bulb out. We won't throw this away. We'll save this because this fits all NuTone buttons, and people always need buttons or light bulbs, so we'll use that somewhere. So we've taken that out. And now we'll flip this over, we'll push our button back out, and there's our replacement assembly. It's the same as what it was. Oops, wait, you can't see it. It's the same as it was in the original one. This is the original one, and this is our replacement. And if you look carefully, you can see they're virtually identical in how they were assembled. And that's the benefit of having something like a jig here, because it just makes the production of it that much simpler. So let's go ahead and reassemble this back into our grill, and we'll be all set. First thing we have to do to reassemble it is we have to put the front half of the button in the hole here in the grill. And again, just like we did before, we want to make sure the NuTone name is standing up the right way. You know, you're the proud owner of a little NuTone entry intercom system, and we don't want it to be upside down. That would be wrong. And also, if it's upside down, all the electrons are going to fall out, and that's bad. So we don't want that. So there's our button, and we'll put this down here, and then we'll take our assembly that we made, and we'll set the speaker down on the back of the grill on the standoffs, and we'll go to our all-important tin cup, and that has all the parts that we saved. And we'll get our 4 screws, and we'll put them back in. Like this. So our speaker is back in just like it was when it was brand new. And we'll take our doorbell button and we'll line it up with the little locking tabs with the little ears in the button, like this, and we'll turn it to lock it in place, like that. And here we have our replacement IS68 door station. The back is fully assembled. You've got the speaker, you've got the capacitor, you've got the push button, and you have your 2 wire leads that you're going to connect to the wires that come out from the hole on the outside of your house. So the last thing we have to do is put our nameplate back on. So we'll put the piece of paper here, and we'll take our clear plastic cover, and you put the right hand side down first, and then you sort of wiggle it around, and then you push it down and it snaps in place. And there's our completely rebuilt IS68 entry door intercom station. I think I could have used a new piece of paper, because now that we have a nice brand new button, this makes this look kind of discolored and yellowed, so you probably want to make a new one for there. You could make a fancy color if you wanted to, or you could just make a label on your label printer or on your computer, and it says George Jones, Unit 1A, or something like that. I don't know. But that's how we're going to rebuild and offer complete replacement assemblies for NuTone IS68 entry door stations. If you have a NuTone IK15 or IK25 entry intercom system and you need to replace the working parts in your IS68, get a hold of us. Our email and our phone number will be at the end of this video, and we're going to make up replacement assemblies just like you saw here today and sell them as sort of a kit that you can install yourself. You don't need to send this to us. As you can see, it's relatively easy to do. If you can turn a screwdriver and mount the speaker and replace the button, you can do this yourself. No reason to pay someone, because it's really not that hard. Now, we only have about 100 of these speaker cones. Depending on the demand for these, if the demand is high, then maybe we'll make the effort to have brand new ones manufactured as replacements, because we have a company that can do that for us. It will all depend on how many of these and how quickly they all sell. I know that there are complexes. I talked to a management company for a complex that's in Chicago, and they have 225 IK15 entry intercom systems in the complex, and the fellow was very interested in being able to buy assemblies like this, because they don't want to start changing out all the systems, and they don't want to have a mix and match of different kinds of entry door stations all over the complex. They want everything to be nice and look the same, and if they can, he said, if they can fix these, then it's something they would definitely be interested in. So how fast all of these are going to go, I don't have any idea, but you can certainly get a hold of us and we'll probably have one for you. I hope you found this interesting and perhaps helpful. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up on YouTube, because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel, put in your email address, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.